So a lot of people in the local industries, service industry, to give you another idea of their mentality, raised in families and in the education system and in the Canadian culture, essentially, where even though they're dealing with the public every day, they only like dealing with certain kinds of people. And even though they find things wrong with certain people, homeless, whatever, they just don't like dealing with lots of different kinds of people. Right? Right? You may prefer to deal with certain people than others, but if you work in a public realm, you have to treat everybody with respect, regardless of whether you think they deserve it, right? Or you think that they're just trying to bug you. So the local bus drivers think that people are trying to unnerve them by asking them questions that people are bound to ask them and that are allowed to ask them. They're allowed to be curious, confused, or concerned about any number of things. And I've never spoken to a bus driver in the local area or asked them a question where I've ever got a direct, useful, competent answer in the 10 years I was using their services. Right? Never got a competent answer once to any question. You could ask them what color the sky is, and I'm sure they would find a way to get it wrong. Right? Everything I asked them, they didn't know, didn't care, or became aggressive. Or if they did try to help me, it led me in a completely wrong direction. This is what you get from the lowest order of bureaucrat. Just mishmash. And not only that, but they deliver it often with hostility and resentment and antagonism toward you and any number of the general public. Right? That's the level at which they operate. That's the level that all of the emergency services, a lot of restaurants, a lot of people operate that way to the general public. Right? To me, that's a mental disorder. Right? There are millions of people who work in service industries who know better than that. Right? But they're groomed and forced to resort by various kinds of oppressive conditions, economically, politically, emotionally, and developmentally. That it's pretty much all that can be expected from. What happened is that everyone's supplied from these types of areas or compatible areas. They function well. So you've got local doctors who verbally abuse elderly patients, nurses, but they're surrounded by yes people who never do anything about it. You've got chiropractors who abuse people and sexually molest some of their customers, but you've got yes people around it. You've got police officers who abuse people and coerce people and extort things, but they've got yes people around them. You've got mental health services, social services, emergency services that are kind of fucked up people and molest children, but nobody says about it, right? Because they're all operating at that level. And you never get people who operate at a level where they're capable of being hostile and violent and belligerent to people who don't deserve it, don't ask for it, whatever they think in their own minds. That have nothing to do with really doing that profession, or shouldn't ever, if you're a decent, competent human being who wants to take real satisfaction in your job or anything, your gender or anything else. And there's always a ready supply of obedient people living in a commensurate amount of denial and suspension of belief. And so they're all around you. Once you see enough hostility from humans, you know that you're an extreme minority. Whatever opinions you hold that aren't utterly compliant. So in that environment, people tend to go into denial. They don't see things. If you're raped by a member of your own family, the same thing. There's a symbiotic betrayal so deep that a lot of them have it. They could even diagnose other people with it, but they don't think that they have it. Nothing is ever so awful, but people will focus upon you and project it into you as a way for them to deal with the same thing. That's called codependency. And people do that in cults. People do that when they're already trying to maximize their sense of joy and survival in any existential, abstract, or practical, or profit-oriented way that they've been commended to or forced into from dislocations in their primal environment. And since they're already lowering their inhibitions in such a magical sense, they're more likely to want to groom, advance, and protect and use punitive and stalking behavior to molest people who do not observe a kind of unspoken language about what is real or right or wrong or unreal, particularly around noticeable acts of violence and stalking in territorial behavior, right? Because the whole thing about these cults and religions and cultures is they're not really helping anybody, right? They're ways of organizing and multiplying people's denial and magical thinking that's been started in their own family, and then giving it something to do, maximizing various things that make violence inevitable, no matter how wonderful it feels to people, and no matter how desperately and viciously they hang on to their beliefs and to their magical thinking and to their principles, if you will, their own sense of survival of the group from people who are victimized by it. And their confirmation bias, all kinds of, you see that their mind, whether educated or smart or whatever they are, should never be asked to compute any more X than the difference between someone murdering someone and someone eating a Twinkie. Like, they don't, it's very crude. I've had alcoholic male and females live with me, and their sense of ethics is non-existent. They can talk about healing things, they can talk about powerful things, they seem to want to relieve people of suffering, but they have no grip on the fundamental strata of what people are suffering, let alone equipped to tell you what to do about it. It's like someone coming to an auto accident and saying, "Oh, you should just fasten your seatbelt and think happy thoughts." Right? Except for the damages that they may be dealing with are more existential in nature, but no less real and shocking. And when you've encountered that enough in your home, in your environment, various places you've lived, it's like you're done. You can wipe your hands with the local population, because even though they're people going to up and out and mug you or hurt you, you don't trust them. There's a reason not to trust humans. But enough of this type of energy, you realize that it sort of looks for people like you. People who seem, from their perspective, to stand out, to make themselves prey. My mama said to me, "You must have a target painted on your back." And you watch TV and you can learn from characters who are scapegoated like men that the normal interests in animals, life, your children, right and wrong, is basically what gets you in trouble. Being an out-and-out sociopath doesn't, for the most part. Most of whom spend so much time protecting falseness and falsity that anyone who has lived in that false and speak that language can easily become prey to them. Because it's easy to unknowingly threaten their sense of survival, their sense of territory, how they make income, how people see them. They're more likely to start making people, from the moment they meet you, they'll start talking about you. They'll show that narcissistic side to the pollution of the human blood. A lot of people who've stalked me started stalking me the first moment they met me, right? They just size you up, whether it's their job to do it, whether it's some sort of chemical or hormonal compulsion, whether it's just a part and parcel of the group you're in, or the person who's introduced you to them. And all the types of perversions that you have sort of decided not to look at, that this person has already demonstrated. So they have what's called a disintegrating personality. And bad things are going to happen around those people. The people you know should have a protective strategy shared with you. If not, chances are they're profiting off of you, and they're going outside as soon as they're done. Right? There's no one in sense than someone who's drowning who sees you as a life preserver. And a lot of people in normal, strong, or high reputation lives are like someone drowning inside. It's been silenced, but the compulsions, the principles, the laudable aims of them in various professional organizations, they're going to find a way not to drown. As much as you look at the debt system, it's like your economy is always drowning. If you don't keep working and make profit and being aggressive about it, you're going to economically drown. Your security is constantly running away from you like a setting sun. You have to work faster and faster, right, to catch up to it. That's called inflation. It's the entire monetary system. It's not designed to satisfy. It has nothing to do with what you deserve by birth. It has to do with what you're deprived of and robbed of, and will never get back from the person who robbed it from you. But no group in the world wants to encourage you to think about that. And for all the same reasons, it's probably a good idea not to. It's weird, I come out here, and I get anxiety. I feel like something's still me. It's an awful feeling. And I pull things out of him, pulled things out of my father. A lot of abuse, but at the very end of the day, I hope he lives a long time. I hope, there's my mom has gotten certain satisfaction in life by being able to abuse me and dislocate parts of my body. As it sounds, they'll probably live longer. A lot of abusive people do because they got something from their prey. They got something out of their system. You can see why people do it. If you can hurt someone and bully someone, you can get it out of your system. Right, as a local stalker over there, and they've lost face, you see, because they're dishonorable. Life in particular is dishonorable, and they've lost face. Even just a lowly old me, and they can't handle it. So he uses my name whenever he sees me, even though there's really no social connection between us at all. And I've been stalked by his wife for 2 years. I bring it worse than people, but only because it's already there. It's already very much ready to go. It's a part of their jobs, right? They work with children, right? It's always there. You see people that are like in the military. It's a part of their job. Part of the military's job, some of the military, to lower their inhibition. So they become people who have all kinds of illusion and stuff like that. That's how they train military people, to lower them, degrade themselves. Get into fights in bars, learn how to take a punch, right? Learn how to beat the shit out of people and be a band of brothers. So that, you'll be the best people in the world when you go to a foreign country and you're given a license to kill. And you have to deal with deadly resistance, stuff like that. Now you're going to be a real cut, right? Because, don't listen to me. Listen to what soldiers have told me. They've taught you, time and time again, they've taught you, right, how to be a barbarian. That's what they teach you. They teach you how to be an animal. To be a barbarian. I'm safe. With the spirit of a bald eagle. Safety. Okay. Let's go, Joe. And I gotta do this.